Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and yes, I've played Splatoon 3 Side Order. I've played it a decent amount. Yes, Nintendo invited me down to their offices, as they so often do, and I got to play the DLC before it's even flipping released, and I played it for about 2 hours or so. 2 hours or so. There was then a presentation afterwards where some Nintendo of Europe employees showed off some stuff from later on into the DLC. You know, some what they called sort of later game stuff, and I got to the same floor as them in my playtime, so and I'm gonna tell you what I thought about it. That's basically the whole point of the video, but I do have to say that the footage that you're gonna see is not my own gameplay. I wasn't allowed to capture my own gameplay. This is B-roll that Nintendo themselves have provided. My gameplay would have been better, I promise. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling. Let's dive right into things. So, Splatoon 3 Side Order, what's the flippin' deal? Well, basically, you play as Agent 8, which is an Octoling. In fact, I think it has to be an Octoling. I didn't get the option. And you go to this sort of strange parallel version of Inkopolis Square. Is it Inkopolis, the Splatoon 2 one? Holy beans, I think I got it right. But everything's all kind of monochrome. Everything's sort of, all the color's been stripped away, you know. It's very, dare I say it, it's very orderly, and that's unsurprisingly the theme of the whole DLC. Because not only does Side Order mean a plate of chips, for example, but it also means if you are on the side of Order. And Team Chaos won at the Splatoon 2 final Splatfest thing, didn't it? So this is like, what would have happened? Kind of. I'm not going to go into too many details for spoilers, but, you know, you're here, and this is all very orderly, and there's something that wants to make the entire world orderly. And it's gonna go about that in a way. Gameplay, Alex, talk about the gameplay. You wang yourself into that tower and you go up the lift. It goes up one floor at a time, just as all good lifts do. And you get to a floor, you've got to complete a little challenge, and then you get to go up to the next floor. And then you complete a little challenge, and then you go up to the next floor, and you complete a little challenge. And it slowly gets harder and harder. It's a roguelite. It's a roguelite. And you know what? It actually works incredibly well with Splatoon 3's mechanics. I had to do this like tutorial section, which is like you just do 10 floors and then something happens. But you go up these 10 floors and it basically teaches you the ideas of the games and how various things work. You got these things called like color chips, which I'll talk about a bit later. And you got this thing called a palette, which I'll talk about again later. But you go through, you do all these challenges, you get to the top, and then the game starts proper. But you got all these floors, and I don't know how many there are, and I did ask, and they said, well, they didn't really answer. But when you arrive on a floor, you have a choice of 3. That's right, 3 different things, 3 different challenges that you can take on, each with a different reward. And this is where the color chips come in. And now I'm doubting that they're called color chips. This is what happens when you rely on your own capture for notes. Anyone who's played a roguelike or a roguelite before will know that generally you get upgrades, and that's what these color chips are. So you basically get a little bonus to something, a little bit extra something. And it starts off small at first, and then it rapidly snowballs into being absolutely ludicrous and overpowered, which you'll see from the gameplay. You may have already seen all the footage that they gave me is from later floors. This can be things like your main weapon damage up, and it's sometimes even split into ranged, like long distance and close, stuff like that, so it's really granular. And it all depends on what palette you choose, because your palette also determines your weapon, your sub, and it's a loadout. But the palettes are all based, as far as I know, on characters from the Splatoon series. So you may get a palette, and it may be Marie, or Mari as I call her palette, and she has a splat charger. And oh no, I can't use it. And each palette will also have a preference for various different color chip types. And the color that a color chip is refers to what it kind of does. So sort of like, off the top of my head, red is like power, so like you do more damage, or you do like a greater area of effect or something like that.
Purple
is support, so that could be things like picking up like ink tanks from the floor, or like batteries for the Pearl drone thing. I'll get onto that. I call her the Perlotron, and I can't remember what color it is, but we'll say blue for argument's sake. This is going to age the video. That's stuff like movement speed and things like that, and you might be able to like get your special charge to go up faster and stuff like that. You know, there's loads of little bitty things, kind of like the stuff that you would get in the upgrades in the main game, but even more granular. And these can get ridiculous. as you've no doubt seen from the gameplay footage. Like, can I just show a clip of the Splat Charger footage that they sent me? So as you can see, they're charging up here, and they fire. Oh, did you even see them charge it up? I didn't. It's pretty much instant, so charge speed's one thing, clearly. And they fire. They weren't even aiming, and it just zeroed in on it. What's going on with that? This is terrifying. Don't ever bring this into multiplayer. They're just absolutely mowing through the enemies. It's absolutely terrifying. And this is the kind of thing where if you're clever, unlike me, you can tailor your weapon and your experience and your strengths in order to make it as absolutely ludicrous and overpowered as possible. And you know what? That's fun. And you know what? You're gonna need it because this is really tough. I mentioned that you get a choice of 3 different challenges per floor. And that's true. And they all come with a difficulty rating as well. And they can range. They can be easy. They can be normal. They can be hard. They can also be rigorous, which is a fun 4th option. Let me tell you, the overachiever that I am, I pick the hardest one every time. Hard is pretty hard. Rigorous can be absolutely like soul destroying. I mean, it varies. I've also had some rigorous that were quite easy, but again, I think it comes down to what weapon you've got, what upgrades you've done, what kind of player you are, how many lives you have left. Because, yeah, you got limited lives as well, obviously. And if it wasn't obvious, your job is to get to the tippity top of the tower. And I did ask, and they did confirm, that after you've done that, like, 10-floor tutorial that I mentioned before, where it takes you through, if you just go straight in, and you are just good enough at the game, you can do the whole thing in one shot. I don't recommend it. It's incredibly hard, and you will have literally one life. But you can purchase permanent upgrades such as additional lives. You can also get continues. And this thing where, like, when your armor bursts, when you take so much damage that your armor goes pop, like it does in the main game, you get thrown upwards. Like, and that sounds like a bad thing, but it gets you out of the fray, mate. Better yet, you can grab onto the Perlotron, not official name, grab onto the Perlotron, and you can glide yourself down slowly, which is really great for getting out of the action when you really need to get out of the action, because the new enemies, and I am terrified of misnaming them because I forgot to write the name down. I believe they're called gelatins, like skeletons made of jelly. Overall, I would say they were more like the Salmon Run enemies overall, broadly, than they are the Octarians. God, I haven't thought about the Octarians in ages. They're generally using numbers more than anything, which again, the Octarians kind of do, but that's, you know, that's the Salmonids' whole thing, you know? It's just numbers. They just throw whatever they can at you. Overall, generally, you know, there are some missions that I did, or challenges, I don't know what they're actually called, where they didn't do that, and they just had a few things coming at you, but the challenge was like working around that. It made sense. And what you need to do in a level and the level itself are entirely separate. Kind of. And what I'm saying is any challenge can be on any level, as far as I know, or at least there's an awful lot of crossover. One of the challenges you have to do is to just like destroy the portals that the enemies are coming out of. Really basic. Another one, you've got these enemies that kind of run away. I say run, they're on wheels and they're fish. They run away and you gotta kill them. You gotta kill them. There's another one where you got these giant balls that you have to get into like a specific slot. It's kind of magnetized. It's not a hole or anything like that, and you've got usually more than one, but sometimes just one. Oh, I've got a visitor. You can't be in the video. You haven't played the DLC. Nor have you signed the embargo. There's another one where you've got to like hit a little sort of like a rotating sort of turbine tower thing, and you've got to get it to the end. It's a little bit like tower control, kind of, but you've got to shoot it. And my favorite one where you've got an area of turf that you've got to ink and then keep that inked in your color, and the enemies try and ink it splat zones. But for some reason, it really works as a single-player experience as well. Having said that, there are these flying fish. I don't know if I've got any footage, but they just sort of float up slowly, and they're basically sprinklers, but an enemy and really high up. I tell you what, I love that I hate them so much, but I hate them so much. And generally, each of these floors can be done in around about a minute, usually under. At least that's the times I was getting, but I am a professional. And to begin with, it was generally feeling very simple and straightforward and a little too easy for me, to be honest, even with no upgrades that I'd done. But that didn't last. I'm pretty sure I've already said it's bloody hard. If you're picking the harder difficulties like I was, things will just suddenly at some point get too much for you to handle in the middle of something, and that will make you flustered and flummoxed, and you can't quite escape because there's enemies everywhere, and you've only got one life because you You thought you were better than that, and you will die. You will die. I mean, it's a roguelite. The whole idea is that you go up, you die, you get some permanent upgrades. You go, you die, you get some permanent upgrades, all that sort of thing. It's pretty much about as roguelite as a roguelite can. Roguelite. I knew I'd end up saying it wrong at one point. It's pretty much as roguelite as a roguelite can be. Yes! But it's not just floor after floor over and over again. Well, it is. But there are some exceptions that change things up. For example, at one point you could get a vending machine on a floor and you can choose that. You go there, you can buy some stuff, and that could benefit you, or, you know, it's unlikely to hinder you, and that counts as a free floor. But if you don't want to spend your money, you can just go to the vending machine and go out again. But doing so, you won't get a color chip for that floor. So you could also just go and do one of those challenges if you thought, that looks easy, I'll just quickly wang out one of them. Or if there's a color chip that you really want there. So there's a lot of balancing. You can choose to play your own way. It's good. There are also floors that have a little danger thing next to them. Again, I don't think I've got any footage. These show up periodically and you can ignore them. It's only going to be on one of the 3 challenges you have there, so you can just ignore it, okay? Easy. That danger will then come back, and it is more likely to come back, and it is also more likely to happen on more than one slot. So generally, unless you're absolutely dead set, you know that, you know, it's going to be really impossible for you to do, you do the danger floor, my friend. You do the danger floor. And the danger floor comes with danger. Sadly, I didn't get to experience much of it. When I did the danger floor, it seemed largely the same, and after discussing it with other people there, I think it was pretty much that the enemies were just a bit tougher, but I didn't really notice. But some of the people I spoke to had, like, it was all, like, in fog and stuff like that. And there was a one that the Nintendo of Europe people showed off, where the entire, like, landscape was covered in the enemy ink from the off, which you sort of, at first I thought, that's not a big deal. And then you remember, that's a big deal. It's just really fun. It might kill your run, but God, you're gonna have a smile on your face when you do it. And then there's the extra lovely bonus thing at the 10th floor and presumably higher, but I couldn't get any higher than the 14th floor. Yes, bosses. I am aware of 3 bosses, and I only managed to fight one of them. One of the bosses, which I didn't get to fight, is apparently like a rotating tower. It's just something that somebody else there mentioned in passing. Another one was really cool. It was the guy next to me who was had it happen, and it's basically just like a little army of like pseudo-inkling, octoling type things. So like they just, I don't quite know how to describe them. Look, they could have been robots or something, but it was just like a little army of them, and that was the boss. Really cool. Didn't get to see any gameplay though, because I was focusing on my own game. But the one I got to play was, I don't want to say the most interesting because I haven't seen the others, but for me, it was the most interesting because it was the one I had interest in. It was this big rolling armored ball with like a little thing living inside, and you couldn't quite, I say little thing, but it was something living inside, and you couldn't damage it. What you could do is you could kind of like aggro it into doing certain attacks. If it just attacked you normally, it wouldn't do anything, but then you could aggro it into doing like more powerful attacks, which would cause it to need to cool down, where it opens the shell. And I say, I did that. That is an exaggeration. Like, if that's the size of the thing, the area you got to shoot and the area that opens up is like that. It's just like a strip round there. It's a pain in the ass to hit. That thing hits like a tank. I loved every second of it. It's rolling around, it's jumping, it can cause additional enemies to spawn, and there's like these bumpers around which hurt you a bit if you touch them. It's nothing major. But if it touches them, it causes a shockwave to go out through the whole stage, so you got to avoid that as well. I had an absolute blast with that boss. I really wish I had a chance to play some of the other bosses. I did manage to get to the 10th floor for a second time, but that was literally as they were saying, we're wrapping up. And it was the roly guy again anyway, so I was just like, yeah. I've got to be honest, I went into this with reasonably high hopes, and it surpassed my expectations. I adored this. I absolutely adored it. Not only is it really hard and you can set yourself artificial challenges, as I said, they confirmed if you go in like straight from the tutorial, you can just complete the game, but trust me, it ain't gonna happen. And they were very, very insistent with that. They said it is theoretically possible. So I imagine it's gonna be a hard time, but someone's gonna do it on launch day. Not only that, and all the upgrades you can get, and the weird, crazy, like, pseudo, like almost Grizzco level weapons you can create, you've got so much incentive to do it time and time again because of all the different palettes. I don't know how many different palettes there are in the game, but there was one for Pearl, one for Marina. I saw someone next to me had one for Fry. I think it was a bucket, but I'm questioning myself now. I obviously had Mari or Marie's Splat Charger and everything like that, and so therefore I can only assume that there are even more because that's how you get the different weapons, and I'm dead excited. I want to know what it's like to go around with a Splatling. I've seen the footage that Nintendo sent, but I wouldn't build it that way. I'd make sure it was nothing but pure power, sir. It has been a really long time since they announced Side Order, and to be honest, I really think it's going to be worth the wait. I was honestly expecting to go in, and even though I didn't want to be thinking this way, I was expecting to go in and go, yeah, that's really cool, but I can't see myself playing it, like, extensively. I can absolutely see myself doing it this. That didn't make any sense. I am super excited for it to finally come out and see what insane things people are able to do with the color chip system and stuff like that. It is going to be an absolutely fantastic time. And it can't come soon enough. What is it, the 22nd of February? That, I know it is. I know it is. I will just leave you with one additional thing though, because, you know, all this, you know, Side Order, you know, we've got the City of Chaos, and this is Order, so it's kind of like, oh, what if kind of thing. And I'm using big inverted commas here. What if Order had won and we were to get a Side Chaos? They'd probably have called it something different, but what would that have looked like? You know, sort of, was this DLC sort of like devised before the Splatfest had finalized or afterwards? You know, I asked them. They said they didn't really answer. To be fair, I don't think the two gentlemen I was speaking to were the actual developers, so that's probably fine. But what do you think of Side Order? Are you a roguelite fanatic or a roguelike hater? Let us know in the comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you grab hold of that subscribe button? It'll help you slow your descent, I promise, and be sure to check out NintendoLife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you grab hold of the Perlotron, not official name. Damn it, it's not the Perlotron. It's the subscribe button. I swear I have another cat. Cobweb is just the one that comes in. Oh, here's the other one. He's a bit camera shy.